Hello, friends. How are you? For tree study this week, we're going to study something called photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis is a pretty complicated subject, but we're going to go over it slowly, and it's important to know. All right, it's important at least to hear what it's about, so to understand more about how trees get energy and all of that, and how they grow and all that. But anyhow, before we do that, though, I thought we could do a fun project using our imaginations and our creativity to make some really cool leaf projects, leaf and tree projects. So I'm going to start you off with something like this. I'm going to send you this as a PDF. I'm sending it in color. And this is parts of a tree. And you can see we have all these different parts of the trees. We know that, something like this is a leaf. Okay, we know that this part of the tree, like the whole thing, like the whole area where the leaves are in the top, is called the crown. We know that trees have branches. We know that trees have a trunk. And we also know that trees have a root structure that is underground that we don't see. Sometimes when you look down at a tree, just on the ground, you can see its roots kind of coming into the ground and then back out and that type of thing. But isn't that incredible of a tree that size? I mean, this tree might be 20, 30, 40 feet high, that it has that root structure. The root structure is as wide as just about the tree is tall, which I find incredible. But we know that trees get their nutrients through their root structure in the ground, and that it has to, get wide like that for the tree to be really stable and all that. So here's our art project, all right? Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and face the camera down so we can see this paper. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create an art project that looks something like a tree. Now, this is one example. We're going to call this a mixed media or mixed medium art project. So I'm going to go ahead and take my branch, and this is actually kind of a little, let me see if I can break it. Ready? Ugh. There we go. Mr. Scott's using his muscles to make this a little shorter. Your parents can help you with stuff like that. So here's my tree right here. Okay, that's my trunk of my tree, right? That's one of the parts of a tree. And then I can go ahead and now, if this was a real tree, it wouldn't have leaves this big. But one thing I could do is just tear these leaves up a lot smaller, okay, to make a bunch of tinier leaves that make up the crown, however you want to do that. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to pull these leaves off and go ahead and create the crown of my tree, and also that represent or that are made up, the crown of the tree is made up of thousands of tiny leaves. Okay, so this whole thing would be the crown of my tree. And uh, each individual small little part of that, if I shred these leaves up and make them a lot smaller, would be the leaves on my tree. Okay, so that's looking pretty good right there. All right, and so far I have the crown is this whole thing. Each of the much smaller parts, if I tore those up and made them smaller, would be the leaves. Okay. I have uh, the trunk of the tree. Any of these little things like right here, I don't know if you can see this right here, could be a branch right up in the tree. Or I can hand draw that. Now, I don't have a roots on my tree right now, do I? Let me just move that a little bit so you can see it. Now, I don't have roots right there. So one cool thing I could do, and this is why we're calling this mixed media or mixed medium, is when you're doing art, you can work in different mediums, okay? This is actually nature. This is actual nature. But I can mix that up with something else. In this case, I have a brown marker, okay? And I can go ahead and draw my roots in there, okay? So I might want to secure this down. I might want to glue or secure that down somehow, however I want to do it. And I'm not going to go ahead and draw all the roots in here. But do you see how I'm going ahead and drawing that in there like that? And then I can take another marker after I'm done, and then I can go ahead and label everything. So I'd make a little arrow here, and I'd say trunk. And then I'd make another arrow here, and I'd say roots. And then I'd take another arrow here and I'd say crown. And then another arrow here, leaf. Okay, I just want to point to one leaf. And then I can make another arrow, let's say here. And I could say branch. And then, you know, we know this whole area up here is the crown. And then I could label it up across the top, and I'm not going to write the whole thing there, but I could say parts of a tree. Okay? So that would be one example of how you can do that. Here's another example of how you can do that. Do you remember probably about a month or more, I showed you this art project here that my daughter made of a sun? She actually clipped little pieces out of a magazine. I hope you could see it there. They're little yellow pieces out of a magazine. She just found the magazine and she used scissors. Wouldn't that be cool to go throughout a magazine and then find all these sections of brown in the magazine, and then to cut them out, and then to piece them all together to make the trunk of the tree, and then to find all these images in the magazine that are colored green, and then to cut a bunch of small pieces out and go ahead and make all the individual leaves that form the whole crown. That would be a lot of fun. You could do the same thing with the roots here, but again, like let's say you wanted to do part of this in this style. You could also draw on here with a marker to make the roots. If let's just say, you know, you wanted to do a bunch of it with this medium style, and then you wanted to do more of it with a marker, you could do that good. You could do that as well, and then go ahead and mark that. Okay, mark that and label it the way I did it here. Okay, so another way would be to, and let me bring the camera back on me. Another way to do that would be to use watercolors or crayons or some type of chalk that you may have where you can draw on a piece of paper. Whatever you think. I want you to use your imagination, but I want to make sure that at the end, one of the most important things you're going to do is go ahead and, after you create your artwork, then go ahead and label it, because then that tells me that you know the different parts of the tree, that you understand this is the trunk, this is the branch, this whole thing is the crown, this whole thing are the roots, and that's where the nutrients come in, and then the smaller parts on the, you know, up in the crown that make up the crown are the leaves. Okay? If you have any questions on that, let me know. Now, this would be optional. Okay? The other side of this is the life cycle of a tree. Okay? Now, we know that an acorn comes off of a tree and falls on the ground. Okay, that acorn, then it can rain, and then that acorn can get embedded in the soil. Okay, and then this acorn breaks open after it gets rain on it and sun, and then a little, you know, kind of stem comes out with a couple of tiny leaves on it. And then the next thing you know, you have something that's called a sapling, which is a tree that would be about that big. It could be much larger than that, but it would start out about that big. And then you could look down on the ground. I was just outside earlier, and I saw some maple tree saplings along the edge of my house. I'll probably run them over with my lawnmower at some point, or my weed whacker, because they're really, really small. And there's no way I can grow a maple tree this far from my house. But anyhow, that you can do the same art project demonstrating the life cycle of a tree. So it starts with a seed, it goes to a seedling, then it goes to a sapling, and then it grows to a full-blown tree. So let's say you get through this thing and you're like, you know, I love that. That was so much fun. And then you want to learn more about the life cycle of the tree. You can go ahead and do this as well. And this wouldn't need to be done right away or anything. I would love for you to do this. This is an assignment, but this right here would be optional if you have extra time to work on something like that. And you know, that could be like something you hold on to and you save so that we get in the summer, you're looking for some stuff to do, you can come back to this and take care of that. But I'm going to go ahead and email you this PDF that has this on one side and this on the other. If you have any questions, let me know, but I cannot wait to see your creative ideas and projects that you make. And one day, probably tomorrow's See, Wednesday, either on Wednesday or a Thursday, we're going to go ahead and share these as part of our read aloud. Okay, maybe on Thursday would be a good day for that. All right. So have fun. This is meant to be fun. It's we're learning and we're having fun at the same time. I'm a really artistic person. I really love art. I probably could have taught art as well because I have a strong background in it. I really love creating art projects using especially mixed media because that allows me to say I'm going to use some markers, I'm going to use some nature, I'm going to use some, you can use little colored tissue paper that's colored green or brown or just whatever you have lying around. You can cut up an old tissue box, whatever you think that has the colors of brown and green on it. Like, just use your imagination, look around your home, see what you have. You could use old toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls and flatten them down. And that could be the trunk of your tree and stick it to a piece of paper. Whatever you think is awesome. Whatever you do is awesome. You're awesome. Have fun with this. I'll see you soon.